Hello. Welcome to Stitchcraft sessions number 5, but it's part 3 of the Hogwarts House stocking embroidery kit. So I've had 2 sessions on this design so far, and we got this far. And tonight, for the next 2-ish hours, maybe less, we're going to work on finishing it all up. So all of the lights, the little loop here for the stocking, as well as cover up this hoop butt. So this will be all covered up. This is a finished one that I have that's Ravenclaw colors, so blue and bronze, and it's all finished up here as well. But this design is available in all 4 Hogwarts House colors. I just don't have the Gryffindor and Slytherin hoops with me handy to show you, but imagine 2D versions of this. All right, so we'll dive right in. I'm going to take every 20 minutes, I'm going to take a quick break and answer some trivia questions. Depending on how quiet or knowledgeable chat is, I'll answer either one trivia question and I'll ask one trivia question and wait for people to answer it, or I'll just answer like all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them myself that come in the card. But let's get started. So first off, I'm going to do the loop right here because I didn't get a chance to finish that last session. And this loop is going to be in the reverse chain stitch that we did for the outline of the cuff, as well as the outline here in the stockings, the toe, and the heel. So it'll follow that same reverse chain stitch. So I've got my main color thread, which is the yellow for Hufflepuff, and I've got 3 strands of it all ready to go on the thread, and I've got the knot. I've got the knot at the end, so I'm all good to start. So for reverse chain stitch, I'm going to show you my favorite way of starting it and doing it, which is the way, if you look back to the second video in this series, I did that same method for the heel. So I'm going to go over how to do that so that if you missed it, you can see. It's just going to zoom in here. So I'm going to follow this line of the loop here. So this one. So I'm going to start from over here and then go this way. So to start this reverse chain, I'm going to go a short distance away from the start of that loop. So I'm going to find that line. I'm going to pull, and I can see that there's just a bit of black poking out there, which means something happening in the back. So I'm going to find where that black is coming from and pull it away from where I am, because I don't want that black to be showing up in the front. All right, I'm just going to remove this because it's in my way. So that's the first step. And then I'm going to use my non-dominant hand, so my left thumb, to pull this piece of thread and anchor it away from the piece, so like this. And then I'm going to take my needle and put it in the same hole as where it just came out of. And I'm going to make sure it's not caught in the knot behind, because sometimes that happens. Looks like it's fine. And then I'm going to pull. It's just caught around the border there. I'm going to pull, keeping my thumb holding that beginning strands of thread so that it doesn't pull all the way through. And I want to keep this loop here. That's an important loop. Okay, so just kind of tucking it away a little bit. I'm gonna take my needle again and put it where that design, that line starts, right beside the black. But before I pull through, I'm gonna make sure that the needle is in the center of the loop. So it goes in the loop there. And then I'm going to pull, and I'm angling my pull when I pull. I'm angling it towards the top of that loop so that when I pull, it makes this nice little chain. And then finally, I'm going to anchor that chain by going behind it. So that it ties that chain into place. So it's not quite flat. It's not quite flat there, so I'm gonna pull it this way and pull from behind to make sure that first chain is flat up against the fabric, like that. So now there's no loop that's poking through as it was before. So that's the first step. All right, so the next step of the reverse chain stitch is to take your needle and go a short distance away, still following that loop design, that line there, and pull through. And then I'm going to take my needle and weave it underneath the first chain. So it's going underneath. And I'm going to pull. And then I'm going to go into the same hole that I just came out of to make my second chain. And we're going to keep continuing on that pattern, following this line of the loop there. And that's the reverse chain stitch. And it's called reverse because it goes the opposite way as like the traditional chain stitch. And if you want to see what the traditional chain stitch is like, then you can go to the previous video and watch how I do the toe for this piece. But I do find that for beginners, reverse chain stitch, well, not even for beginners, like I do find that reverse chain stitch is easier to do. It doesn't require as much fiddling around with both hands compared to the reverse chain stitch. Alright, so I'm just weaving under the previous stitch and going into the same hole that I just came out of. Oops. And I'm starting to see that my thread is twirling against itself here, which is a recipe for tangles. So you want to make sure you let it twirl back into its natural position. And to do that, you hold your hoop like this, parallel to the ground, and it'll just twirl by itself. And so when I'm stitching now, it won't loop around itself, which is what I was doing before. All right, and I'm gonna keep going. I'm rounding a curve here at the top, so just want to make sure that my stitches, my chain stitches are a bit shorter so that it's following the line on the design. And I'm going to turn this over here because it's easier for me to see where my stitches are going. Oop. Sorry. And I've just realized that there is a huge knot on the back that I didn't catch like earlier on. It didn't really give me any grief when I was trying to pull, so I didn't notice it at all. So this might happen. It's not a big deal because I can kind of tuck it flat and it's not going to go anywhere, so I'm not too worried about it. But if you did catch something like that earlier on happening, then I would generally stop and like untangle this knot. But it's not for now, or yeah, I don't think it'll be a big deal because I can anchor it flat with my upcoming threads here. So I'm just gonna put this off to this side so that it gets, like I said, anchored down with my next few stitches so that it's not kind of sticking up. So I'm keeping my finger here so that it stays here. And then my next stitch, which is going to be here, will kind of cover that. So I'll show you what I mean. It's going to anchor that flat like that. And then it won't be sticking up at the back. And last one, I'm gonna go as close to that black outline so it looks like it's coming from inside of the cuff. And there we go. That's our loop. All right, and I'm gonna finish off this thread by going to the back and weaving it into the previous threads. And I'm just kind of going wherever's closest, really. There's a lot of satin stitches for me to anchor against, so that's good. And snip the ends. Right. I'm just moving all of these knot ends kind of towards where there's thread so that it's less likely to show through in the back or get caught when we start working on the lights. So kind of just moving it to where the fill is. Alrighty. So we're ready to move on to the background here. So we've got like this string that's going to be in a dark gray. And that's going to be in outline stitch. So let me just try and fix this border here because my needle got caught on it. So I'm just going to pull it this way. That's better. All right, so dark gray. So embroidery floss comes in 6 strands. So I'm going to separate it into 3 because we're going to be working with 3 all throughout the design until we get to these lights and the lightning bolts. Then we'll work with 6 with a sparkly thread. That'll be nice and chunky. And I'm separating thread here with my favorite method, which is you take a strand of thread, and I'm gonna make sure these are the same height. Those are my 3 strands. I'm going to hold the rest with my other hand, keeping it tight like this, and I'm going to pull, keeping this tight, and my strand is separated, and I've got this, which looks like a jumble, but you can actually straighten it out and it's all good. All right, so I've got 3 strands of dark gray thread. Give it a little lick to make it easier to flatten and thread through the needle. I missed one there. They're not all quite the same height, as you can see. So I'm gonna cut it so that they are, and that also makes it easier to thread. All right, so it's a lot more flat now, and they can go into the eye of the needle. And then I'm going to do my favorite quilter's knot to make a knot nice and fast. And pull through. And if you want a slower version of that, I go through it in part 1 of the House Stocking series. All right. So I got my needle ready. So for this stitch, it's called an outline stitch, which is really similar to stem stitch, but it's just the direction of where you hold your thread is different. So it looks like this. So you can see it's got this type of texture. It looks like a rope almost. And it's used a lot for like branches or like stems of flowers in embroidery. But I really like the rope-like texture that it gives, so that's what we're gonna use. All right, so to start with the outline stitch or stem stitch, I usually call it stem stitch, even though technically it's outline stitch. It's got the same, like similar texture to me, so I'm going to go from here and go like this S all around. So starting from the tip of the string, I'm going to pull my needle through, and then I'm using my fingers again to keep it upwards this time. So similar to the reverse chain stitch. So I'm going to keep this upwards because I don't want to pull it all the way through in the next step. But I'm going to go a short distance away on that line and pull through, but not all the way. So still keeping this loop. And then in the center, in the midway point between those 2 strands, I'm going to then pull my needle through, and that's what it's gonna look like. Oops, that's what it's gonna look like. So I've got my needle, my thread here in the center of it, but not splitting it. It's just kind of like underneath it. So then the next step, again, I'm going to take my thread and make sure it's upwards. The direction is upwards of how I'm holding my hoop. And then I'm going to go another distance away on that line. But before I pull all the way through, this thumb is keeping it in place. So I'm not going to pull all the way through, but I will go put my needle in the exact same hole as the previous stitch. So not in the center. Remember before we did the center? We're going to put it in the same hole right here. And pull through, and this time I can release my thumb because I do want to pull it all the way through. And I'm going to repeat that process for the rest of the design. So keeping my thumb holding the thread upwards, I insert my needle a short distance away. My thumb is keeping it there. And then I'm going to take my needle and insert it in that previous stitch and pull all the way through. So the thumb holding it at the top is really important so that you don't pull all the way through until you get your needle back in where that previous stitch ended. And when we're following this curve, I'm going to twist and rotate my hoop along with it so that the thread, the direction that we're holding that strand before we pull through, is always at the top of it. And it's not, so we're following this curve as it moves kind of in this S shape. And we are up to the 20-minute mark, so I'm going to take a quick break. My needle minder should be back where it is. I'm going to need to fix this border before I close it up, I think, just to make sure it's not untangling. All right. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm gonna read out all of them and just kind of answer as I go. I'm just gonna put it to the front of me so I can read better, but I'm gonna keep stitching while I do that. So according to Professor Slughorn, what is the purpose of a Horcrux? A, immortality, B, power, or C, victory? And I'm pretty sure the answer is A, immortality. Because then your soul is, or part of your soul is always in something, so you never really die. So as I said here, I'm going to twist my hoop around like this, and the top is always going to be in the same direction as when I first started. Who is the ghost of Ravenclaw Tower? The Grey Lady, who is Rowena Ravenclaw's daughter, I want to say. What potion is used to force someone to tell the truth? The truth potion is called Veritaserum. Veritaserum. Why do I feel like I'm not saying that right? Pronouncing it right. I feel like the British accents kind of change the way things are said. Or like I wouldn't say them the exact same way as they would with the British accent. But it's definitely Veritaserum. Who are the only two people that can retrieve the prophecy from the Department of Mysteries? So that would be the people that the prophecy is about. But it's definitely Harry. But would the other one be Neville? Because it kind of fits him too. I'm not sure. Like it's either Neville or Voldemort because it was about Voldemort. So I'm gonna say Harry and Voldemort. So I'm rotating like this now because I really want to follow the direction where this curve is going. And next question, which school champion scores the highest points in the second task of the Triwizard Tournament? Ooh, highest points. So Fleur was disqualified in the second task where they had to go to the lake. Yeah, they had to go to the lake for the second task, and she didn't get that. Crumb did the shark thing. I feel like he got kind of lower points for that. Cedric was the fastest, but then Harry got like the moral fiber extra bonus points. So I want to say it's Cedric. And Harry got second. So I'm almost at the end here, and it's just like a tiny little stitch left. So instead of keeping this thread anchored with my thumb, I'm going to finish it off right there. And that is the outline stitch. So got like this rope-like texture here. Right, and then I'm gonna jump over here and continue on. And as I showed in the last video where I was working on this main fill, when I jump from like here to over here, I like to just weave in to these other stitches just to make it less likely for it to be like snipped off somehow. And the tension is a little bit better compared to if I just jumped from here to here. Sometimes it's not always possible. But in this case, that's what I'm gonna do. So then I can start, where am I starting? Over here. Oh, I went the wrong direction. So I went from here to here, but I should have been over here. So I'm gonna weave back up the top there to get to where I want. There we go. Now I'm over here. All right, so these are a little bit trickier because they're shorter, but it's the exact same concept. So we start off making sure to anchor this thread upwards, and then don't pull all the way through. Put your needle in the center, in the middle of those two, so the midpoint, and then pull all the way through. And as I said, this is short, so not really much to do there, but you still get that rope-like texture even in that short little area. And then there's a tiny little line here in the middle of the loop as well. And for that one, I'm going to do a backstitch because it is small enough that the stem or the like rope-like texture won't really show up all that much. So I'm going to just do one backstitch, and then I'm going to pick it back up with the stem stitch here. And I might oscillate between stem stitch and outline stitch, like calling it, because I'm used to just calling it stem stitch, even though like super technically it's called an outline stitch. They're practically the same though. All right, and back to the trivia questions because I have one last question. A hippogriff has the body, hind legs, and tail of a horse and the wings and head of what creature? An eagle? Maybe? Yeah, I think it's an eagle. Buckbeak looks like an eagle from the top up. Alright, answers. So it was immortality. The Grey Lady was the ghost of Ravenclaw. They also put Helena Ravenclaw. I didn't know that was her first name. Veritaserum is the truth potion. Harry Potter or Voldemort are the only two people who can grab the prophecy. So got that. Cedric Diggory got the most house points, or no, sorry, the most Triwizard Tournament points for the second task. Okay, so it was him. He didn't tie with Harry. And the last one was an eagle. Yay. Got all of them right. So this stitch is another kind of two-hand job, just making sure that you're stopping that thread from being pulled all the way through before you can get your next stitch ready. And I'm rotating it this way now. So I started here, and then it was starting to curve around, so I rotated that way as well. Oh, Sarah Lynn, thanks for joining. I just saw your answer about the griffin. That was my first kind of gut feeling, but then I wasn't sure if it was, it's gonna sound silly, I wasn't sure if it was a real animal, so I was like, it must be an eagle, because I know that's a real animal, but I don't know about a griffin. All right, that's the next one. And I'm just gonna check on the thread I have here. I think it's good to keep going. So I'm going to jump over here and continue on, but I'm kind of imagining this as like a rope that's going like this. So because in this when I was working on this, my hoop was rotated this way, I'm going to keep on going this way as if it was continuing on. So I want to be around over here. So I'm going to weave under to jump over there. All right, so I'm going this way. And just gonna go as close as I can to that yellow outline. And keep on going. Oop, almost lost my thread there. My thread is getting short, and as you can see, so I want to adjust this a little bit, but I want to make sure that this doesn't get unthreaded, so just want to be careful here. Okay. Oop. So I think I'm gonna end here, and I'll show you what I do when I have to end kind of in the middle of it. I'm going to go pretty close to that last stitch and end it right there. And I'm gonna finish up this thread, weave it through. So in the back, the outline stitch or stem stitch looks like a back stitch. It's really nice and neat and pretty. I like it. So I'm going to anchor this in the back and cut the excess. And then I'm going to keep going here. So where's my leftover thread? Separate this out. And I'm separating this, even though it is already 3 strands together, because I do find that when they're separated and then put back together, they're less likely to tangle and they stay flatter against your fabric while you're stitching, which I like. So that's why I do this extra step. And make my knot. All right, so we kind of ended in the middle of this, and we're going to try and pretend like we kept going. So if I had kept going, I would have come out from underneath this stitch, like that last stitch. So I'm going to try and go underneath and just kind of angling my needle kind of outwards to the side when I do that. So it looks like it's underneath that stitch. And then I'm gonna keep going. And I'm following this curve here, so I just want to make sure, as always, that I'm making my stitches shorter so that it follows the curve much better. Oh, it's not quite staying flat. I don't know if you can see that. So I'm going to pull it out and give it a little tug again, and it's staying flat now, which is what I want. All right, and as I'm coming out of that curve, I can start to lengthen my stitches. And I'm going to do my last stitch, going as close to that black outline as I can. There we go. Last bit of rope string over here, and that will finish up the dark gray thread. So I want to be over here. So I'm going to jump over that way. If you prefer to end your thread there, and then make another knot and then kind of start right over here. That's also an alternative. Either way works. So I'm just trying to see that my fabric is getting pretty loose in its hoop, and I want to make sure the fabric tension is tight. So I'm going to give it a tug all around with this excess fabric over here so that it's back to being pretty tight. I'm going to fix this and tuck it under. I think this is one of the first crochet borders I did, so it's not quite as tight as I would like it to be. But I did fix that with the other ones. There we go. All right, so then keep on going. So keeping this thread up as I work my way around the curve. Ah. Oops. My needle got caught in between the loops, so gonna unloop that. Yeah, so this outline or stem stitch is also a pretty good stitch to do outlines with, similar to the chain stitch, which we used as the outline over here. Gives like this nice texture and kind of like a border feel to it. So stem stitch is another one of my favorite outline stitches. It goes by pretty fast. And if you do kind of lose this, like if it just slipped away when you were trying to anchor it and you pulled all the way through, that's okay. You can take your needle and weave it under and kind of pull it up again, and then try again. Almost at the end, and then you get to work with the sparkly thread. last one is a small one. And there we go. Got our string all ready to go. And going to weave this in. We're pretty close to the edge, so I think what I'm going to do is try to weave it in over here so that it's easier for me. But whatever is really closest. And the best angle for you to anchor that thread in so that it doesn't go anywhere, you can do that. Oop. All right, it's pretty in there. And snip it off. Oops. There you go. All right, so that is progress. Just brush off some of the little tiny pieces of fabric there. And give this another pull so that it's nice and tight everywhere. All right. Okay, so next up, we're gonna tackle the lights, and that's going to be in the secondary color, which is black. And yeah, we're gonna start over here actually, and then work our way like this, boom, 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 and then go up here, and then work our way down. So that means less jumping around. So I'm kind of trying to find a path that like we can follow that's like pretty close together. And that's what I came up with. So I'm gonna take my black thread, my black sparkly thread. Let's see, does the sparkle show up on the video at all? Kinda. Yeah, but you can see here the bronze is sparkly and the dark blue is sparkly, which is, I love it. It's more magical. All right, so again, I'm going to separate out all 6 strands so that it stays nice and flat for us when we start stitching. And that's just gonna make for a nicer effect. But it does take a little bit longer. And you wanna make sure you don't have a lot of tangles. So I highly recommend this technique of separating out. Take one strand, keep the rest pinned down together pretty tight, and then I'm going to pull that one strand out, 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 and you'll see this is bunching up, but if you take that ending and straighten it all out, it won't be knotted at all. Even though it seems like it should be knotted, it won't be. So I'm just gonna do that again. One more time. And we've got all 6 strands ready to be put back together. Sparkly thread can be finicky, especially for the first few stitches, but it will add to a slightly more textured effect, which is honestly fine. So in the kit, I'll actually provide 2 different types of needles. The one that I've been using is thinner and has a smaller eye, and it's nice for like the chain stitches, especially when you're weaving under stitches. Like the thinner needle won't make the chain stitch like bulge up from the flatness of the fabric as much as a thicker needle will. But for these 6 strands, I do recommend using the thicker needle that I'll give you. It's only like slightly thicker, but the eye of the needle is bigger. So it'll make it easier to thread. So to threading 6 is a bit harder than 3 because there's more strands to like keep track of and flatten. But as long as you flatten it like this and keep it close together, that should help with threading. So it'll kind of look like this. It's not all there. I'll do it again. It might take a few tries. And if it's just not working, I will actually include a needle threader. So I think that's good. I'll include a needle threader, which is terrible for 3 strands, but for 6 strands, it actually works really well. I've been trying it, and with 6 strands, like it doesn't fray it, which is interesting. All right, but I'll show you when I use this needle threader how simple it is compared to trying to do it manually. Okay, quilter's knot. I think I made it a bit too tight. There we go. Alrighty. So, like I said, we'll start over here, and for this stitch for the lights, we're going to use what's called a lazy daisy. Slight variation because it'll be a filled lazy daisy, which will be fun. But before that, let's do one trivia question. Orange. Which Ravenclaw student first tells Harry about Rowena Ravenclaw's lost diadem? That was Luna. Luna Lovegood. Was not that specific. All right. So, lazy daisy filled. First of all, for this light, it has 2 components to it. So the first component is this little base of it, which is going to be a straight stitch. So it's going to be just a line. And then this little loop here is what we're going to do the lazy daisy filled stitch for. So to start off, we're going to start from the top of the stitch. So where that lazy daisy would start, the base of that, and then pull through. And I'm just gonna make sure it's nice and even and flat. And then we're going to finish off that line by taking our needle and putting it right underneath that stem stitch. Oop. And I pulled on the knot instead of the needle, so I'm just gonna make sure that it's flush up against the base of the fabric again by pulling on this side of the thread. And then I'm gonna pull my needle all the way through. And that's the first stitch. The second one is going to be our lazy daisy. So for this one, I'm going to start right next to where we first put our stitch in. So the base of the lazy daisy, of the light. So I'm going to call this the base, and then the top is the top. So when I say base, I'm talking about here, and then the top is like the top of the loop. So I'm going to pull that. I see a little bit of a thread poking through, so I'm just gonna make sure to tug that away. So it's tugged away. And then this is actually going to be the first stitch of how we did our reverse chain, if you remember, all the way back from an hour ago. It's going to be exactly like that first stitch. So we're going into the same, almost the same hole. We're actually going to go slightly to the right of it, like that. And then we're going to keep our thumb on this strand so that it doesn't pull all the way through, because we want to make that the loop, the chain, the lazy daisy. And then we're going to put it at the top of that, the top, just the top. But before we pull through, we want to make sure our needle is going through the center of that loop. And then when we pull through, I want to pull it tight. You can see there's a little bit of a stray strand there, so I'm just going to put it back in. And then I'm going to anchor that stitch by going just behind the loop there. And pull through. You can start to see the sparkle there. Now, where the filled part comes in is, I know you can't really see it, but there, if you kind of try and find the middle of that loop with your fingers and your needle, like there could still be some fabric poking through there. I want to make sure that gets filled because I don't want any fabric poking through. So to do that, we're going to go in from where we first started, and it's going to be a little bit tough just because there's a knot in there, but we're going to go through that same hole and pull through. And then this is going to end right where that anchored stitch was, where we put it right behind. So it's a lot of the same holes that like we've kind of been working with, going in and out. And there we go. That is the filled lazy daisy. All right, so I'll show the same thing with this one. And in this design, there's different lengths of these lights. So you can see this one's much bigger and this one's smaller, this one's smaller, and that's just to give it a little bit of variation. With this original design, I did actually slightly edit it for the new one. You can see they're smaller and they're around the same size for all of them, but I wanted to give it a little more variation here. So that's why it's slightly different from the Ravenclaw one. All right, so let's do it again. Let's go and jump into this one. We'll do the base of that stitch, which is going to be a straight stitch. And then go slightly to the left. And then slightly to the right. And making sure I'm holding this, that it's not going to be pulled all the way through, because that's going to be my loop. And I'm gonna put my needle through the top of that light, making sure the needle is going through the loop, and pull. And it's not going to stay completely flat, but that's okay. I can try and kind of move it where I want those strands to be. But even if it's not completely tight, it still adds to the effect, so no worries there. And then I'm going to anchor it at the top with a stitch right behind where that loop is. Oop. And then finally, I'm going to do the fill. So from the base all the way to the top. There we go. All right, that's what that looks like from the side. Now I'm gonna jump over here. Oops. Now I'm gonna jump over here and keep doing the same thing. And these are slightly long jumps, but I'm not too worried about it because when we back it, you won't be able to really see the thread on the jumps. All right, so you can see with this one, you can see the center, like the fabric is showing through much more than like these ones. So it really just depends on the shape of the light and the chain. So for this one, when I go to fill it from bottom to top, then we don't see that fabric anymore, which is what I want. And I apologize for the lots of moving around on this stream with the hoop and stuff. It is tricky to keep it in the same spot when I'm trying to use both hands. So like here, my hoop, my hand is over here, so now I gotta move it over here to keep to keep this in place. So that's why it's moving around quite a lot more than previous streams where I usually only use one hand to coordinate everything. And as you're working with this sparkly thread, you probably start to notice that as you keep going, the thread itself is getting more and more manageable, and like they stay together, they're much flatter compared to like over here when they're like super curly and like a bit harder to put into place. That's just the nature of sparkly thread. Yeah, so here it's a bit more curly, so I just want to make sure it kind of stays in place where I want it to be. And then sometimes I like the curly effect, so I leave it like here. Kind of like gives this like it's shining type of vibe. So I generally leave that. Yep, almost at the end of the thread, so I might have to switch it up soon here. I think this might be my last one, because it's otherwise going to get hard to do the loops and keep it in place. So we're just going to fill this one. There we go. Lots of lights. All right, and I'm going to weave this in over here. There we go. Give it a snip. And always got little fabric threads here. All right. So next, I'm going to do the same thing, separating these strands out. And while I do that, I might as well do some trivia questions. Did I do this already? No. Who gives Katie Bell a cursed necklace to pass on to Dumbledore? That was Malfoy, being all sneaky. During her time as Hogwarts High Inquisitor, which teacher does Professor Umbridge dismiss? She dismisses Professor Trelawney, the divination teacher. Unfortunately. So sad. Who does Hermione attempt to impersonate using Polyjuice Potion in the second year, where she instead gets turned into a cat? That was Millicent Bulstrode, a Slytherin girl. After discovering he cannot use his own wand to kill Harry, Voldemort uses the wand of which Death Eater? Malfoy. Do I have 6 here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Miscounted. What is Luna Lovegood's nickname given to her by her peers? Loony Lovegood. Not very nice. And aside from the ridiculous charm, what really finishes a boggart? Laughter. They don't like people laughing at them. Alright, Draco Malfoy, yes. Trelawney, yes. Millicent Bulstrode, Lucius Malfoy, Loony Lovegood, and laughter. Boom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Too easy. Not that I am. Yes, I am bragging. I am humble bragging. So, this 6 strands I want to show you now using a threader. So to use a threader, you're going to put the tip of the 2 tines here through the eye of the needle, which is easier. And then you're going to take those 6 strands and put it through those 2 tines, which is easier than putting it in the eye of the needle, presumably. If I can do it, yeah. And then you're going to take your needle and pull it towards the tip of the 2 tines, and then you're going to hold the tines like this, not over here because it's more likely to break, you're gonna hold it over here. And you're gonna give it a good tug. To take it through the eye of the needle. And I think because it's 6, it's less likely to fray. I've tried it with 3 if you've watched my other streams, and it's more likely to fray. But with all 6 strands, like it's pretty good. So, oh, my video. Okay, my video was catching up there, which was weird, but there we go. And I'm gonna make a knot at the end here. And we'll keep going. Yeah. Quilter's knot with 6 strands and sparkly thread is a bit harder to do, I'll say. So if you want to just do the normal knot, that's totally fine too. It's pretty long, so I'm gonna give it a snip. And I finished up over here, so I'm gonna keep going that way. Some's getting caught. There we go. That's good. Maybe I'll just zoom in a bit here and that's easier to see. I feel like it's more wiggling around. So I'll zoom back out. I'll get the hang of this some point. All right, so you can see like it is very curly when you first start out. So it's just the nature of sparkly thread. I pulled it a bit too tight there. You want to make sure when you're pulling this thread all the way through that it's going to the top direction so that you have a nice long chain stitch. And then I'm gonna fill it in. And I can already tell that this one is a little curlier than the others, but you can always take your finger and mold it into place. Just gonna give this a tug at the top of the fabric because I'm noticing that it's getting loose. Putting that in the center of the loop. There we go. And the fill. And I can already feel this thread being much more manageable. I'm just gonna pick the next song because this one's got lyrics and it's distracting me. Pulling this as well. Almost there. Hoping this thread will be enough to finish up. So I just got that little curly piece there that I want to pull through because I don't like it. There we go. It's gone. There's times when I do like the curliness, and then there's times where like it's just like not quite. There's only like a couple pieces that are sticking out, and it doesn't look nice. So I try to flatten those down or tug them down so that they're not doing that. Two more. You can see the loop is getting shorter. As I'm doing this. And then a cute little tiny one to finish it off. Alright, there we go. All the lights are done. So going to weave this into the stitches that are closest. Just a few times, make sure it doesn't come out. Ooh, there we go, a bit tight. There we go. Last bit. Oh, just a little stretch. So the last bit are the lightning bolts. As I'm looking at this, the lights are definitely bigger, which I do like. Gives them, like, it actually looks more like lights rather than little tiny things, and it is easier to do the bigger ones than the smaller ones. I found as I was doing this design. But I don't like how these are super close together, this little circle here. So I might get rid of one. I'm gonna print out the designs later, actually tomorrow, for those people that have ordered the kit, ready to be shipped out on Thursday. So I do have some time to kind of tweak it a little bit, and I think what I'll do is remove probably this one and this one, so that there's only one in this little corner now that the lights are bigger. Okay. So I'll do the gold, the lightning bolts in gold now. Gold sparkly. This one you can definitely see the sparkle. But while I'm separating those threads, we'll do a few more trivia questions. All right. What does Harry use to destroy the diadem of Rowena Ravenclaw? I don't think he like really planned it, but like there was that fiend fire that was it Goyle? That was it Goyle or Crab? I can't remember. That uses it, so he uses the fiend fire. What is Professor Slughorn's favorite treat as discovered by Tom Riddle? That was crystallized pineapples. I don't know what really that means, but it was crystallized pineapples. Which potion allows the drinker to temporarily assume the form of someone else? Polyjuice potion, which has come up quite a bit in all of the other questions. What is Horace Slughorn disguised as when Harry first meets him? An armchair. I love that scene in the movie. It's just so perfect. On whose grave does Hermione see the symbol that Xenophilius Lovegood was wearing on a necklace? This one's a multiple choice. James and Lily Potter's, Godric Gryffindor's, or Ignotus Peverell's? It was Peverell's, the Peverell family. What should you never do to a hippogriff, as they are a very proud creature? What should you never do to a hippogriff, as they are a very proud creature? I think it's never turn your back on them. Never turn your... That sounds right. The other answer in my head is like... like you have to bow to them, but the way this question is worded is like, what should you never do? It's like you should never not bow to them, which is weird wording. So I feel like it's you should never turn your back. I don't know why, I'm not sure. So, oh, hi Maria Angelica. You're adorable. Can't wait to get my stocking. Yay. Never insult them. Is that it? Okay, let's see. Oh my god, you're right. Insult them. You should never insult them. Nice. I did not know that one. Well, that took me a little bit. So let's check the other ones. The diadem was actually a basilisk fang. Huh. I thought it was the fire, but maybe that's a movie only fact. Crystallized pineapple, Polyjuice Potion, an armchair, and Peverell's. Cool. Wow, I'm so glad that at least Chat got that one right. I'll have to rewatch that third movie. All right, so last little bit here, which is good because we're getting close to the 2-hour timeline, is the lightning bolts. And these ones are probably the simplest in the whole design because it's backstitch. So we'll do one stitch going this way, another stitch going this way, and then another stitch going this way. So 3 stitches in total. And I'm going to start from over here again, same with how we did the lights. So we're going to go this, 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 and kind of jump like that. So we're gonna start over here and do the first stitch, so that line. And then the next one. Another line. And then the last one. And that's lightning. So I'm gonna do that for all of these going around. And for this one, it's not a requirement that you do it exactly the way I am doing it. Like you could start from over here, like where the base is, and then go upwards. That works as well, as long as you're making three separate lines that make up a lightning bolt. Might have to grab another strand for this. I only have one with me right now, but we'll see if it goes the whole way through. It should, because I measured it, but you never know. Yeah, this one is definitely the simplest, and don't have to fiddle with it like how we did the other two-handed ones, like the stem stitch and the lazy daisy. And then when you're going from the base, from the string, you want to make sure that it's as close to that string as possible. So what I like to do is, same as how we've been doing it all throughout, kind of angle your needle diagonally so that it's underneath this gray stitch here. And I've got a little bit of black poking out there, so I want to make sure that is not happening. And 3 more So for this one, I'll start from the base this time and go upwards. Just to show that it really is the same effect either way. So close, 2 more. And the last one. I'm getting close to the end. And that is it. Yay! So gotta weave it back under things here. So whatever's closest, gonna go under things a few times just to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. I'm not really following anything specific here. And that is it. So don't need my needle minder anymore because that is the end of the stitching. So that's what it looks like. And the sparkle of the gold definitely comes out more. On video, the black doesn't quite capture it, but with in real life, I can definitely see that sparkle. So yeah, so pretty, yay, thank you. All right, so to end this off, I'm going to show you how to back the hoop so that it looks like this. You don't see all this messiness, this glorious messiness. And it will sit a lot flatter once you hang it up on the wall with the cardstock below. So I'm gonna plug in my glue gun here. And while it's heating up, I'm gonna take my scissors and here's my cardstock. And I'm just gonna make sure this crochet border is nice and snug, and that the tension in the fabric here is also nice and tight before I keep going. All right, so how to do this part, I'm going to cut all around the edges so that it is short enough that when I do this, there's no excess fabric that's touching this fabric. So like this. Right now it's really long and I can see that this excess fabric is touching the back of this fabric. So I want to make sure I cut that out. Have my scissors here and just want to be careful when I do this that I'm not cutting the crochet border or I'm not cutting like any thread that I don't want to be cut. Okay, this is pretty much the best angle I can give you. Also, if you just heard a meow, that was Tobin waking up from her nap. So when I cut it now, you can see that it's short enough to go over this inside edge, like that, but not too short, but also not too long that like this is happening. So that's way too long. This is just right. So I'm gonna keep doing that. and try to find the angle that works for you. I generally like to put it flat on the table and then hold the fabric up and cut it in small sections. That's easier for me. I check it every once in a while to see if it's short enough. This one just needs a tiny bit more snipped off. I feel like my music stopped, but I don't. Maybe I just can't hear it. Or it's just really silent music or quiet music. Go. So I'm keeping also my fingers kind of this border over there so that it doesn't pop up and get snipped accidentally. So my fingers are kind of acting as a guard for the fabric and the blade and the crochet border. Alright, I think that's good. Just gonna go all around. This needs a little bit of a snip. And that is good. So once all of the edges are nice and short, we're gonna take the scissors again and then make vertical cuts to separate all this into sections. So I'm gonna start over here and do a little snip. Again, being careful that we're not snipping the crochet border. Like, it doesn't need to be super flush up against the edge there, but just enough to separate into sections, small sections. And that's gonna make it easier to glue this fabric down towards the inside of the bamboo hoop. Make sure that's in view. So vertical cuts all around. And when we get to the top of the hoop, you can see there's always a little bit of a gap in the middle there. I want to make sure that that gap is in the middle of a section. So I can have a tiny cut there and a tiny cut before it, but this middle section should stay together, and that makes it easier to tug it into place and then glue it in. All right, so there's a lot of, there's a lot of different fabric bits kind of all around, so I just want to give it a brush, and my glue gun is hot enough. So I got this little dinky craft store glue gun, and I'm going to start again just to the right of the top, and I'm going to take my glue and glue the top edge right here. Glue the top edge right here, just enough like that, and then press this fabric down towards the edge and the inside of the hoop, like that. And the glue, even though we only put it on the edge there, it's going to kind of seep over to this inside of the bamboo hoop. So you don't need to put glue on the inside edge of the bamboo hoop, just the top edge. So just there. And then press it down pretty firmly. My glue gun is not like a fancy high-end glue gun, so I think that helps in that it doesn't burn me when I'm doing this, like when I'm pressing it down. If you've got like a nicer glue gun, maybe the heating point temperature is higher, so just be careful when you're pressing it down. But generally, the fabric is enough to kind of protect you from the heat. And then you kind of get some glue dried bits on your finger, and I just rub that off. So you do this piece by piece, section by section, all around until you get to the end. You can do 2 at a time if you've got the hang of it, or if your sections are a bit too short. You can see my glue kind of seeped out a bit too much there, so I'm going to try and get rid of that. Scrape it off and just make sure it doesn't go to the back of the fabric. Alright, there's this one I missed over here. And then the top edge here, I just want to make sure before when I'm gluing it down, I'm tugging at it so that this piece over here ends up, this piece over here ends up smooth. So I give it a tug as I'm gluing it down. All right. So that's what it looks like when it's all glued down. And there's some here that's like not quite flat, but that's okay, it'll get covered up. And the rest of it is glued down, so I'm not worried about it popping off. All right, last step is the cardstock. And to make sure there's no bits in there. And then this sits right on top like this. And that gets glued down as well. So I like to do this in sections, usually 3 different sections. So I'll line it up as best as it fits in this little circle. And then I'm gonna keep this flat here, but then the other side I'm gonna open it up and put some glue here, just a tiny bit really, and then slowly put it down and kind of tap it down. If there's still a bit of glue seeping out, you can take it away. But this is the back, so that won't really be shown off, so it's okay if it's a little messy. And then with that anchored in, I can then turn it so that I can do another kind of half of this section. And my glue is going on the top edge of the fabric here, pretty close to the inside of it. And tap down. And finish up the tiny little hole here. You can say goodbye to the hoop butt because you won't see it anymore. And that should be good. So let's sign this one because this is my second embroidery kit. So I'm gonna keep this one for myself. And because I did it on stream, it's extra special. So let's do a little sign. What's the date? November 23. 2021, Hogwarts House Stocking Embroidery Kit on Stitchcraft Sessions. Yay. Alright, big reveal. So before I finish this, I would probably take a lint roller. I don't know where mine is right now. I can't remember where I put it. But then you just lint roll around the thread really carefully so that it takes off any of the little fabric bits that got stuck on the thread, like these. From when we were cutting it, that tends to happen. And yeah, any other like cat fur that goes on it, which happens to me. And that is it. So thank you so much for joining me for this Stitchcraft session series. So this was the Hogwarts House embroidery kit. The link is right there. Actually, I'll put it up again. And yeah, it's available. I ship every Thursday of the week, so I'm shipping in 2 days. So if you want to get your order in, if you're interested, then definitely do that. And I've also got these cute little crocheted Hogwarts House stockings that mimic the embroidery kit, which I really like. And that's all on my Etsy shop. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope this helped you get a better sense of what stitching is like and what's involved with it. And I will see you at another stream. Bye!